In this video, we will combine the zero product property, so solving when an equation is written in its factored form, with factoring out the greatest common monomial factor in order to solve or find the roots of a polynomial. The first step is that you have to make sure it is set equal to 0. Your equation must be set equal to 0 in order for this process to work. In this first example, our equation is equal to 0. So then we can go to comparing our coefficients. We have 4 and we have 12. 4 does go into 12. So I can say that my greatest common factor of 4 and 12 is 4. The greatest number of x's they have in common is x. And I would multiply an x with 4x to give me 4x squared. So I've started my factoring here. And to get 12x, when I have factored out a 4x, 12 divided by 4 is 3. And since the x's are the same number, I do not need an x. So I've now taken this binomial, factored out the greatest common monomial factor, 4x, and I now have a product of a monomial with a binomial. So now I am down to step 5. Use the zero product property to solve. The zero product property states that I can take each factor and set it equal to 0, because in order for this to be true, one of these factors has to equal 0. Solve. X is going to equal 0, and x is going to equal -3. So our roots are going to be 0 and -3. Another example, it is not set equal to 0. So before we can do anything, we want to set this equal to 0. Now, another thing I see here is my leading coefficient on my term with the largest exponent is negative. So I'm going to, in the process of setting my equation equal to 0, I'm going to add that to the other side of the equation so that that term can become a positive term. And I will have 0 equals a positive 10a squared plus 8a. I always find it is so much easier to factor if that leading coefficient is a positive number rather than a negative number. And then for 10 and 8, since 8 doesn't go into 10, it might be best to definitely make sure we write out our factors for each number. So for 8, we have 1, 2, 4, and 8. For 10, we have 1, 2, 5, and 10. So it appears that our greatest common factor is going to be 2 for our coefficients anyway. And the greatest common number of a's they have is a, just a single a. Parentheses, 2a. What would I multiply with 2a to give me 10a squared? Well, 10 divided by 2 is 5. And this is one more a than what I have, so that means I would have to multiply by another a. Plus, 8 divided by 2 is 4, and the a's match, so I don't need to multiply by another 4. Then I need to set each factor equal to 0 and solve. Divide by 2, we have a equals 0, subtract 4, 5a equals -4, divide by 5, and we have a equals -4/5. So our roots for this equation are 0 and negative 4/5. So you want to make sure that first the equation is set equal to 0, and then factor out the greatest common monomial factor before you set the factors equal to 0, and then you solve.